I was going to start off with an apology for the way I'm dressed. But all of you know that we are in GOTV mode now. And that's where I was. I came out of the precinct right from here. Actually, I came out of the precinct, went to Rebecca's softball game for 30 minutes, watched her get on base and come home, and then I came here. So all of you parents in the room understand what comes first, and I am a member of Congress that continues to balance work and family every single day. And one of the fondest memories that I have of speaking to the West Broward Democratic Club, and actually so many of you remember this, because I think the twins were passed around from person to person, was when I first gave birth to the twins, and came here soon after giving birth, and had them in the stroller, and a bunch of you helped me push Shelby, rock her in the stroller so I could, Rebecca and Jake in the stroller so I could come up here on the podium and make sure that I could do this job well and that job well too, and you have always been so, yeah, exactly. Having 200 grandmas in my district, right here in the West Broward Democratic Club is absolutely fantastic. So people ask me all the time, Debbie, I don't know how you do it. Well, the West Broward Democratic Club is how I do it. Because without you, there's no way that I can make it all work. And thanks to my husband, we'll throw in a plug for him too. It is really such a privilege and a pleasure to be here in front of the West Broward Democratic Club again, to be able to represent you in Washington. It's really crunch time, folks. I mean, there is no two ways about it. We need to live, sleep, and breathe, turning people out to vote for the next, now almost 5 days until the election. And every single cycle, someone else says, yet again, that this is the most important election of our lives. I'm going to be the one to tell you that this election, unlike any other, is the most important one of our lives, because we have just come off the worst economic crisis that we've had since the Great Depression. The Bush administration literally almost sent us over a cliff, and thanks to President Obama and the Democratic Congress, we rescued the economy from the jaws of the abyss. And that was not what happened without our policies being put in place. Remember, we went from bleeding 750,000 plus jobs every month, and a run of 22 straight job losses, 22 straight months of job losses in the months leading up to the end of the Bush administration and leading up to the Obama administration, to now 9 straight months of job gains. 9 straight months of job gains, 4 straight quarters of growth in the GDP, 11 straight months of growth in the manufacturing sector. We are on the mend. Now, we have a long way to go. We really do. We all would like the pace of change to be quicker. I mean, we're all impatient for change. And I talk to people. I've been out at the early voting sites the last week or so, talking to people who, you know, there are a lot of angry people, but there's also a lot of people that are just, you know, they're just clutching their chest and they're trying to hang on, and they just want to know that there is someone in Washington fighting for them. That's what they want to know. Their confidence in their government has been shaken. And it's the reason that their confidence has been shaken is because we know that the Bush administration essentially yanked the rug out from under this economy and did things that were so focused on promoting and protecting and helping Wall Street firms that they forgot about Main Street. They forgot about taking care of the middle class. They forgot about taking care of our seniors. They forgot about taking care of working families and focused so exclusively on the wealthiest 2% of Americans that it left millions of people holding the bag. It left millions of older people approaching their retirement years between 55 and 65 years old without a job. I can't tell you how many people in that age range have come up to me recently and said, Debbie, what are you guys doing for us? I've lost my job. I don't know how I'm going to get another job because I'm really, you know, I've aged to the point where my salary was too high for them to keep me on, and I'm not sure how I'm going to get somebody to hire me for what I need to make. They aren't Medicare eligible yet, so they were struggling with health insurance. Well, that's why it was so important that we passed universal health care reform. That's why it was so important that we covered the 47 million people in America that don't have health insurance. The reforms in healthcare, and I tell you, there's been a lot of frustration and anxiety over the number of candidates that were supposedly not running on their record, not proudly running on the fact that they supported healthcare reform. I am proud to tell you, I supported healthcare reform. I co-sponsored healthcare reform. I swung from the rafters in support of healthcare reform, and a lot of you saw me out there doing it, and I will do it again, and I'm going to tout the benefits of healthcare reform for the next 4 years until it's fully implemented. We closed that heinous donut hole that left seniors twisting in the wind without prescription drug coverage. As soon as you hit just about $3,000 in prescription drug coverage, you lose any coverage at all. Then you have to struggle until you hopefully can climb back out of the donut hole, which means that you have to have spent almost $6,000 on prescription drugs before you can get coverage again. That beautiful plan was brought to you by the Republicans when they were running the Congress. And they passed that bill and added to the deficit because when they passed the prescription drug bill, they did it without paying for it. Then they got us into 2 wars without paying for it for the first time in history. And President Bush handed President Obama a record deficit after inheriting a record surplus from President Clinton. Well, we want to go back to the good old days. We want to go back to the point where we have prosperity again. And the only way that we're going to do that is if we can continue to fight to create jobs, to turn this economy around, to move the country in a new direction, to make sure that we focus not our tax-cutting policy, not on the wealthiest 2%, but on making sure that the middle class and working families get their tax break, on making sure that small businesses have someone standing up for them in Washington, because they were ignored for the 8 years that President Bush was in office. Ignored. There was no policy and no one in there swinging for people who own small businesses. Now there are. In the last 2 years, we have passed 16 different tax breaks for small business owners. 16 different ones. We've made sure that we fought to pass a tax cut for 98% of Americans. We passed Wall Street reform. We passed healthcare reform. We made it possible to keep the automobile industry alive, folks, because we passed the Cash for Clunkers program that allowed, when the automobile industry was suffering and struggling and on the brink of collapse, and we almost didn't have an American automobile industry in America anymore, we made sure that, yes, it was controversial to provide TARP funds to the automobile industry. That was controversial, but if we didn't do it, we would have lost 1 million jobs. The Republicans said, oh, let GM go bankrupt. Let Chrysler go bankrupt. Who cares? It's their own fault. They're not being competitive. They're not being productive. It's a global economy. Let's let them twist in the wind. Well, if we had done that, we would have lost not only the jobs in the automobile industry, we would have lost the jobs all the way up the supply chain. Because how many contractors and suppliers are there that provide all those parts and mechanisms and bells and whistles that make cars run in America? It would have been an absolute travesty, and it would have been devastating to our economy that we were fighting so hard to bring back from the abyss. So if we had done that, it would have been totally irresponsible. And what you should know, and what you should tell people who are frustrated with some of the things that we've done to rescue this economy, tell them that the automobile industry now is operating at a profit. For the first time, all 3 of the big automobile dealers operating at a profit for the first time since 2004. They are paying the United States government that TARP money that they borrowed back with interest. So not only will it eventually not have cost us anything, but we will have made money on the deal. And the same with the banking industry too. It wasn't popular to rescue the banks. But let me tell you something. When I stood on the floor of the House of Representatives 2 years ago at the end of the Bush administration, and we were voting on whether or not to pass that package to rescue the financial services industry. And the first time, if you remember, the bill failed. And the market dropped 700 points in an hour. 700 points, the largest, quickest drop that we've had, I think, since the Great Depression. And then a few days later, we went ahead and we passed that legislation again, and that's when we started climbing back out. President Obama took office, and we passed the Recovery Act, $787 billion in tax cuts. Almost 50% of the Recovery Act was not spending, but tax breaks. tax breaks that the Republicans refuse to provide to people who mightily deserve them. So we have to get out over the next few days, folks, and talk to people about our accomplishments. We have to let them know that this election is a very clear choice. It's a clear choice between extremists who want to take this country backwards, whose leaders have literally said that they want to return to the exact same agenda that they implemented when they were in charge. Do you want to go back there? I sure as heck don't want to go back there. I don't want to go back to the time of George W. or Jeb. Either one. We've had enough. They did enough damage. So we need to make sure that we choose Democratic candidates. And I know all of you here are going to do that, so we need to get the word out. When I said it, but it's not just a slogan, when I say we need to live, sleep, and breathe getting out the vote in the next few days. You know, very often, the perception in politics, and since there's been such an avalanche of money in this campaign, it certainly would be the perception in this campaign. The perception in politics is that the most precious resource that you have is your money. But I know different. I know different. The most precious resource that you have is your time. It's so much easier. I probably, if I walked around this room and asked people if they would write me a $25 check, or if they would give me 3 hours, I would get more $25 checks than 3-hour time blocks. I bet you anything I would. So we need you to make that investment of your time. If you haven't gone down and spent time working to get out the vote, either through phone banking or door knocking. I mean, Simon Lewenthal is an absolute machine. Lewenberg, excuse me, is an absolute machine. He goes door to door like no one I have ever seen. And what Kendra was talking about making sure that we're all wearing our paraphernalia, do it like Simon and wear it on your head. He's got my number sticker on his hat. So that works for me, but that we all can find a way to do something over the next few days. Because I know that each of you probably has some frustrated neighbors, some people who think it's just not worth voting, it's not worth participating, and we're not going to listen to them anyway, and so why should they bother? Make sure you sit down and explain to them why the choice is so clear. How prosperity is only going to occur if we fight to continue to move the country in the new direction we've been pushing. So thank you so much. Thank you for your support. I am on the ballot this time again, and I don't take anything for granted. All those pundits that say, you know, I'm 100% and a lock and all of that, you know me, that I never take anything for granted. I walked up door to door my first race and knocked on 25,000 doors. I've been walking door to door this time. We've got signs in the back that Jody, my Vanna White, is displaying so well in the corner there. So if you want to take a sign, if you live in a single-family home or have a place that you can display it, please take a sign. Please volunteer on election day. We have a lot of candidates that need people to stand at the polls. If you have some time, if you have the energy, I would love to have you as a poll worker handing out material to voters as they go into the polls anytime between now and election day, but especially on election day. And also please join us at our victory party, which will be at Scudo's, Joey Scudo's Pizzeria on election night. I'm not sure what time yet, but come on down and join us. If you haven't eaten there, it's really very good pizza. And you know, you can take the girl out of New York, but you can't take the New York out of the girl. So I can tell you that I've had the pizza, and it's as close to New York as we have it